I think for me, having kids was the biggest, medication for that. It helped me switch off completely from rugby. It was a good distraction from all the pressures of high-level sport. But before that, I would always dwell on certain things that will happen in a game, certain things that will happen in training, or things that I need to do. But yeah, for me, since having kids, that was the biggest decompressor, refocus for me. Every time I got home, I knew that rugby's just a game.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of The Grind Game. My name is Benjamin Kayser. I'm a former international rugby player and now an entrepreneur and investor, co-founder of Team Pack Ventures, a venture capital fund that invests in climate and health by extracting the best practices of elite sports to bring them to our portfolio companies. I am fascinated by entrepreneurs, athletes, investors who all are united by one common trait, the fact that they never let go. They never leave the grind. Ils ne lâchent jamais rien, like we say in French. And so I'm fascinated by all those conversations I'm having, by digging behind excellence and see what their true recipes are in terms of resilience, in terms of togetherness, in terms of dealing with adversity. Today, I am so honored and so pleased to have Jerome Kaino, 81 caps for the mighty New Zealand All Blacks, two-time world champion. It hurts me to say it because in 2011, they really hurt France. A leader, a formidable player who then excelled at transitioning into coaching and currently assistant coach at Stade Toulousain. Jerome, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. Great to be here. Been a long time.
It's a sunny day in Toulouse.
Yep.
You were spot on time, which is a very good quality to have, for an elite performer. And thanks again. Look, I'm not even going to start laying down your rugby CV. Everybody pretty much knows it who follows rugby. And you've been an incredible performer. Two-time World Cup winner, that's something of a significance. What really fascinates me is to go behind the scene and to talk about how tough it was, how you had to handle media pressure, togetherness, sustaining performance. Once you're world champion once, how do you stay hungry to win it a second time? And that's what I'm really happy to have you here today to chat about. And thanks again for being here.
Pleasure.
Right, if we dig into it, straight up, age 21, one of the youngest players. I know we've got a mate in common, Isaiah Toyava, who was even younger than that, but to play for the ABs. Talk to us about this. How can a young 21-year-old have the mental strength and just the maturity to handle such honor and privilege that it is to put the black jersey?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock because there was so much class around loose forwards at that time. There was still Jerry Collins, the late Jerry Collins was... the man there was Rodney Soyalo, there was Sione Lawaki, the late Sione Lawaki, Chris Masoi. So for me to get selected in 2004, it was a real shock. But in terms of dealing with the pressure and stuff, I was lucky that there was a whole influx of young players that got selected on that tour. There's Luke McAllister, Piri Wipu, Conrad Smith, so I kind of felt like we were all sharing that burden in terms of how we deal with it, how we navigate our way through getting thrown in the deep end. So for me, it was just all about soaking it all in and enjoying it. So it wasn't like I was thrown in there by myself, which was a good thing.
It's funny how I said to you about 2 minutes ago that I have a long list of questions and I throw it in the bin, but I'm going to do it right now because straight up I always get asked. So for people who don't know, the All Blacks are also renowned for the haka, for what you do after the national anthems. A really important enrootment in the origin of the New Zealanders into this Maori traditional dance of an invitation to war. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but it really is that. And everybody's like, how is it to be in front of the haka? I said, look, it's flipping fantastic because the power that you guys give out, we receive, right? And it's not like we're getting hit by bullets. We're getting transcended by this, by this compelling invitation to war. But I've always been very confident that fear, vulnerability is a strength, and that those who try to hide it, pretend like the haka is nothing, will melt when they're in front of it. And the same way that you just said, you're 21, it was something very scary to jump into the All Blacks, but you managed to dismantle that by not being on your own. How do you handle fear? How do you handle anxiety? Do you express it? Are you confident enough to own up to your own fears?
Well, it took me a long while to deal with anxiety and fear. Like naturally, men, we kind of guard it to ourselves and try and deal with it ourselves. And I learned the hard way, obviously, with injuries and performances. You learn to try and share your vulnerability, share what's concerning you, and you quickly realize that 99% of the people are going through the same thing. And to be able to share with it, you learn other people's ways of dealing with it, other ways to techniques to try and overcome it. So I learned later on in my career that sharing and being vulnerable is as you said, a strength, and it's easier said than done. But in the long run, you feel a lot more at peace with your performances, with your preparation. With a lot of things that come with it.
And you mentioned getting inspired by a couple of techniques. Do you have some in mind, like things that you picked up along the way, maybe from other teammates, from coaches, from personal experiences, ways of handling that?
Yeah, I think I've heard, was it Yannick, he spoke about the what if.
Yannick Nyanga.
We used to always go through what if situations, and for me, I used to have a personal what if something isn't in my bag before the game. What if the timings of certain warm-ups? What if I have a little niggle during the warm-up? What's going to be my process after that? How do I deal with it? How am I going to put that aside and just focus on my performance? So I would always try and think of the worst-case scenario, what would happen, and how I would deal with it. But also in games, you have the weather, you have referees.
You could miss your first tackle.
Yeah, miss your first tackle, and then what's your process to get back into the now, into focusing on the next action. So I used to try and do that as well as I could, but more often than not, everything pans out the way you want it. But on the odd occasion where it always seems to be at the biggest stage, something goes wrong that just tips you off mentally, and usually visualization, that was the big one for me, the thinking about what would happen and how do I overcome it.
It's funny because you say, how do you react? I was looking at this interview from Novak Djokovic, the tennis player, and they're saying, asking him, what's your edge on other people? So my edge is that, because he looks quite robotic sometimes. They're so good, those guys. You think that they feel nothing. And he's like, do you not think when I hit a good shot, I don't think I'm the king of the world? Do you not think when I miss a shot, I don't want to dig myself my own grave, and jump in there? Of course I have those frustrating moments and those exhilarating moments. What I'm really, really good at is that I come back to my normal level faster than anybody else. So he just manages to get back onto, how am I going to react? Okay, you deal with it. What am I going to do about it? How fast can I get back into the game? You missed a tackle? How long am I going to drag my feet complaining about it? It starts raining. How long am I going to complain? And we're good at complaining in France. You know that, right? It's part of our DNA. But isn't it really... It's like a time of reaction to adversity that can dictate whether you win or you lose.
And that's the difference between a good performance and an excellent performance, is how quick you switch back into, or what we used to call it, the now. Is where you are, be where you are, and a lot of people react. A lot of people take a longer time to dwell on the mistake, dwell on what referee's decision, dwell on whatever happened, which isn't within your control. But what you can control is how quick you switch back into the now, which I like to think of as the next action.
And all that knowledge, did it take you time to gather it, to learn it? I mean, we're talking leadership here, right? There's leadership by talking, by motivating your players, but there's also leadership by example, by seeing people look at you, how you handle that adversity, how you handle yourself if you had a bad call from a ref, or missed a pass, or missed a tackle, etc., or a bad loss. Did it take you time? Was it a process? Did you see yourself changing from age 21 to age 34 when you came to France? Did you see yourself evolving all that way?
Oh yeah, there was a huge difference. Obviously, as a young kid, I wasn't the most talkative in terms of them asking questions to the leaders or the older guys, and so you just sit back and you watch different leaders, how their qualities and what they do, and you kind of just you generate that information by yourself just by watching them. But as the years went on, mental skills became a big thing in rugby, and we were lucky enough to have Gilbert Enoka, who was our mental skills coach, and he had a lot of gems in terms of what different leaders look like, what it looks like to lead yourself. And through time, I learnt that what he was telling me, I had already seen from the leaders before when I was playing, without even knowing what it was or if it even had a title. So no, it was great. It took a while for me to soak it all in, but as time went on, I kind of found what would work for me, and how I could what kind of leader I could become. Yeah.
So we're gonna have to talk about Gilbert Enoka again, because like I said to you, there's this whole book that is really important to me, was how him and James Kerr wrote it around legacy, how you guys came up with the 15 principles of the All Blacks. I think it's the only time I ever hear organization saying, yeah, you can try to be fitter, you can try to be technically better. Everybody's trying every day. You can try to have a better strategy. Yes. Now, can you try to be better people? Oof. That's a whole different dimension of leadership for performance that I've never really seen. But just before we dig into that, you said that you saw some behaviors that you didn't analyze as being leadership, but you already knew it. Do you have, like, in the back of your mind, a couple of things that you like to see, a couple of players, the way they reacted? Who inspired you, basically, around you?
Right off the top of my head, Kevin Mealamu, Richie McCaw, those two.
Why Kevy?
Kevy was a different leader to Richie in terms of, but what their direction in terms of leadership was heading in the same direction. Was heading the same way. They were heading towards the same goal, but just doing it in different ways. Kevy's a lot more humble, reserved, but with his actions, he makes sure that no standard is stood on, nothing is overlooked. Richie's more performance, organisation, driving standards himself, leading the way, and but what I got from both of them is the way they prepared themselves, which also by consequence led the team. I think it was a term from Gilbert Enoka, but Richie and Kevin took it to another level. It was a phrase that says success is a bad teacher. In terms of in a rugby team, I'll use rugby team as an example. When you keep winning for a certain period, the strictness and the detail that you put into your performance or your preparation, is it always going to be the same as if you were?
Why would you? You're winning.
Yeah. And that's what they mean by success is a bad teacher, because they'll be like, oh, we don't need to be as strict on this because it's been great for the last 6 or 7 weeks. And they were really strong on that. They were like, oh, I don't care if we've scored or we've had 100% lineouts in the last 6 weeks. We're going to keep working the same amount of time, same intensity, the same way.
Keeping the standards super high.
Standards, yeah. And that's what I got from them. No matter how many line breaks or what, everyone just keeps their head down. You keep working with the same intent to try and keeping that gap between, us and wherever we need to be.
I must say, I didn't look up to anybody really in rugby, because I came into rugby a little bit late, and I played front row, as you know, but I didn't identify to anyone. Kevy is one of those guys that you play against him or you see him play and I'm like, oh shit, I love his style. I love silent assassins. He didn't say anything. Yeah. And he was definitely not gobby, not mouthy, super respectful. Yeah. Like it was probably like my 5th cap, his 100th or something. And you could tell that he gave you the same attention and genuine kindness, respect that an opposition deserves. Yeah. And like almost apologizing because he couldn't swap shirts, because it was the only white one that I have. I think that's what he said to me when I played to him. But really impressed me. But Richie, well, I've never chatted to him. Never, I'm not sure many people chat to him. Yeah. But what was really, really impressive is everybody tried to kill him. Everybody tried to have good. And it's just his robotic face every time you tried to whack him really hard. He never showed any pain.
Any emotion,
He just got up. He was like the Terminator, you know? Get back up and you're like, what? I just hit you as hard as I could.
Yeah.
Show me something. He's probably battling inside.
I know.
He's probably trying, just walk. Don't show anything. But you're like, he's split open there, but he's just walking again. He's like, like the Terminator.
Yeah, those two were the personification of relentless, the word relentless. They were just, on the field, in terms of their actions, rugby-wise, they were relentless, but off the field, in terms of leadership, they were relentless also with driving standards, what this performance needs to be, what preparation needs to be, and it was incredible to be able to work under them.
And so let's go back to the 15 principles of the All Blacks. If I'm correct, you were sort of part of that generation that started addressing that, because it was post 2004, probably it was post 2007 World Cup. No, the defeat, the quarterfinal against France. Forward pass, not forward pass. We won't speak about it now. Talk to me about how did it come about? Because I heard that it wasn't only coach driven. It wasn't top down. Look, this is what we're going to do. It was very much. There was a lot of ownership in it, because there was a lot of implications from obviously the leadership group, where I'm guessing was quite wide, to them proactively try to build this together with the coaches for the benefit of the team.
Yeah, I was still part of the younger group then, around 2008, 2009, and I think we had a lot of guys come back from that World Cup and stay within the team. So the probably 50% of the team did experience that 2007 World Cup. So I think those leaders took it upon themselves to try and galvanise the group, or galvanise the leadership group. And yeah, you're right, it wasn't only coach driven. I think the players really took it upon themselves to say, okay, where do we go from here? And what does the next 4 years or 8 years look like in terms of leadership and performance? How do we transfer it? But to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you what the 15 principles are of the All Blacks, but it's to be able to work under those leaders and see it manifest into performance, into standards, it was incredible, and it made my job easier as a young guy to come in and just express yourself.
And did you see anybody not buying in to that sort of new vision? Because, there's this thing in rugby, maybe it's because I'm French, but you see a guy, at least when I played a long time ago, you saw a guy doing extra drills, you're like, he's a suck-up. He's trying to get into the team. You see a guy being proactive at, look, guys, we need to be better. I'm like, you're not the captain. Don't try to take the spotlight. So there can also be this quite stupid, silly reaction to trying, especially when you talk about psychology, leadership, ethos of what you're doing. You're going quite deep for a very physical, sometimes one-dimensional sport. Yeah. Did you have people who just say, this is just stupid, I don't buy it? No. Why are we doing this? Questioning the whole direction. Did that happen?
Not in terms of the direction, but I thought there were some leaders who did question the efficiency of how we did things. Like sometimes we would do things because it's standard procedure, because we do things. And some guys, some leaders like Kevin, they'll step up and they're like, is it efficient for us to operate this way? And it's not going against the team or going against anything. It's just questioning the efficiency of our time, efficiency of how we operate, and it's probably a question that could add to the evolution of our group. And I remember a few times that coaches and managers were questioned, but it wasn't to step out or stand out away from the group. It was more to help the group move forward and how do we evolve. But no, in terms of that negative talk or behaviours, I never ever saw it with All Blacks. Because when you see leaders like Richie and Kevy doing extras, and then you see that transfer into their performance on the field, you'd be like, I need to do that.
It works.
Too. Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
You say you don't remember the 15 principles. I don't know them all of them either. But I would like just to put the spotlight on two. One is sweep the sheds. Because I was telling you what really matters to me is I'm a huge believer in culture and values. It's the untapped resource of performance. Maybe particularly for rugby, I don't know, but for any team sport, potentially even any sport or any source of excellence. How much heart, how much individual drive, how much self-ownership are you going to push through those standards? But they need to be incarnated, right? It needs to be, humility is great. Of course you need to be humble. You need to believe in yourself and your team, but you need to be humble, yes. But what does it mean for you? And you guys found this quite really clever, quite genius way of saying, right, sweep the sheds. Our way of incarnating it is going to be doing that. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, well, I thought it was pretty cool because the first time I heard about it, because in rugby we get a lot of things. We get a lot of things done for you, given to you, and I remember the first time that a lot of the young boys would come in, get their jerseys after the game, have the presentation. Obviously, we have a few drinks, and then everyone just leaves their stuff and then goes. And it's just like, I remember Gilbert was just like, guys, you're going to show the same respect to this change room as you would we were back home. And first time, and then it was the first time I ever saw everyone get up and just be like sweeping. But that's when social media wasn't really a big thing, and sweeping the sheds was more like an in-house thing. Now it's widely known. But as it went on, Gilbert and the leaders were like, don't just sweep the sheds because there's cameras around or there's people watching. Sweep the sheds as if no one was watching and there's no one taking photos, no one talking about it. And he says, sweeping the sheds is similar to like doing your skills, doing your preparation, doing everything else. Do it as if no one's watching, no one's taking photos, that you're doing it for a reason. And I thought that was awesome. I thought it was really cool.
I heard this one time, Johnny Wilkinson, who was a training freak. He was saying, he always used to go kicking on Christmas Day on the 1st of January. And he said, why do you do that? Because I know nobody else is. So this idea of doing when nobody's looking, I'm doing it for me. I've got this edge on competition. I think Jerry Collins was a little bit like that too. He was talking about his pre-season stuff where he used to run in the mountains. And because I played with Massy in Christmas in Castres, and he was very close to him, obviously, and talking about all those things. So that was his way, sort of showing the graft, right? The work behind it. I mean, you're also a social animal and a fantastic player, but did you do that? Were there some things that you did behind the scenes that nobody could see that were only for you to win that little inner battle?
Not really. I wasn't really the cutting edge type of trainer, but there were certain times where I would adopt some, like Jerry, for example. He was definitely a social butterfly. He loved going out, having a drink. But there was one thing he used to always do after a big night. He would wake up and go for a run. And he used to always say, because no one else is, the guys that I was with last night are probably still sleeping. Other guys will probably be sleeping after as well. No, I thought he was crazy. But little things like that I kind of adopted. If I had been out on a night, I'd try and train the next day. So I'd try and adopt other guys' philosophies to try and help myself. But no, I never really had anything that would stand out, like next to Johnny or JC, Richie and them.
So we talked about sweep the sheds. There's another one that I remember, straight to the point, no dickheads. This is idea that, is always be a good team player, bring positive energy. I think some people say, don't suck energy out of a room, but, bring some. You guys went straight to the point. There's not enough time in life to be surrounded by dickheads, especially when you're trying to represent your country and do the jersey proud. Talk to us about this ruthlessness, about just be positive, bring something to the team.
Yeah, it was more like as you said, if someone's doing extras and stuff, and then the bro culture when guys are like, what a suck up, just trying to suck up to the coach. Come and relax. It's that kind of attitude, the dickhead attitude. Coaches were big on not wanting everyone to be robots, to be behaving the same way, turning up, no one questioning anything. Well, they encouraged a lot of questioning why we did things to improve, but questioning just to be difficult or questioning just for the sake of it, that crosses the line into being a dickhead. But I think it's easier to control in New Zealand because we're so small and we only have 5 teams, and to be accepted into that All Black group, it's such a coveted position, and there's just no room and no space for you to be a dickhead if you have the privilege to be into that group. So I think it was a masterstroke from our management and our leaders to be able to bring that in, because it's so easy for guys in New Zealand to be able to take things for granted, but for the group to be able to galvanise like that was awesome.
So obviously that's 2007, and then an incredible winning machine was created by then, winning 2 back-to-back World Cups. But talk to us especially about the 2015 one. Honestly, I can't remember how many 100th cap or Centurions you had in the team. So much experience. You're so well drilled. It wasn't a walkthrough, but you were expected to win, and you just delivered. 11. In your home country, it just felt like the pressure was ginormous. You said a small country, number one sport is rugby union, right? What is it, 6 million population in New Zealand, something like that?
About 5.5, 6.
That's like half of London, you know. But one of the highest performing teams in the history of our sport, because everything's glued to it. So now when you're hosting the World Cup, that you haven't won for a while since, that was the only one you won before that was 87 in New Zealand also, the first one ever. So talk to us about this, handling this pressure of the people, of the country, this expectation to deliver.
Yeah, I didn't think we knew how much the pressure was going to be until we were actually in the position. Obviously, before the World Cup, we were thinking we're going to have the comfort of our own supporters, we're going to have the comfort of knowing our stadiums that we're going to play in, and also being in familiar surroundings. But as the tournament went on, we performed quite well. But I think towards the finals phases, the message started changing from it's ours to win to it's ours to lose. And I think that slowly crept in, because the media were talking about, we've already won the World Cup. And, you know, and for us, we needed to try and block out that external noise to be able to say, guys, anyone could take us on our day. But in that final, it was probably the most intense atmosphere, probably the toughest game I've ever played in my life, in terms of intensity, pressure, external pressure. And also, you can't help it but think towards the final whistle, you know, what's going to happen, what the result's going to be, because it was so close. But there are a lot of factors that added to that pressure, the media pressure, the public, being at home, and a lot of the World Cup failures before that. It was just like deja vu, like not again type thing, you know.
Been there already.
Yeah.
Yeah, with expectation can be a bit of a curse, right? Because like you say, you need to block out the noise, focus on you. Sport is always there to surprise you, and that's the beauty of it too, especially in a collective sport with 15 guys on the field. Yeah, and you can take on any team on any day and all that. And then 2015, tremendous victory. Between 2007 and 2015, I think you had a 90% winning ratio, maybe 92%, with a winning streak at some point that broke a record. I can't remember if it was 18 games or something like that. Or, I mean, it was mad. And most of the games actually, you were behind. I think you're behind 10 minutes out, probably 80% of the time, but you just kept on snatching it last second. You were unbearable. You know, like, we've got them this time. This time they're dead. And then whoop, like last minute try and a saver, etc. That was pretty tough. And then obviously transitioning to coaching. Are you enjoying it? Is it something that you always wanted to do and pass on the knowledge?
It wasn't something I always wanted to do, but during my playing career, I was lucky enough to work with Wayne Smith, who, for me, is one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. And I really worked close with him in terms of my defence and how I needed to defend when I was with the All Blacks. And I was quite critical in terms of how I performed or how the team performed on defence. And he always said to me one time, he said, you're going to be a good coach one day, because just how I looked at the game defensively and how I looked at my own game. And I kind of laughed it off. And then as soon as I made the decision to stay with Toulouse, and when Hugo and Didier asked me, he was the first person that messaged me. He said, I told you so. But he's quite well known here in France, obviously. But he really keeps in touch with Pierre Villepreux over here, and he's always in Italy. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity the Stade have given me. I'm loving it. Really enjoying working with the Espoirs, the young boys, but also with the pro team. Just learning different ways on how to look at the game. How the game's evolving, how we can adapt. So it's incredible.
And the key, I know that's the $1 million question, and you probably don't have a perfect answer. But what are the key main components of being a good coach or being a good manager, in your mind?
Consistency, I think. For me as a coach, you got to be consistent in terms of how you feed the players the information, consistent in terms of working constantly with the players, and consistent in terms of how you keep evolving, because you can't be consistent but doing the same thing for the whole year. You got to keep evolving your rugby
brain.
IQ. Involving the way you feed the players information, how you make them improve.
Nice. Right, I'm sorry to say that we've brushed off all the positive elements of the discussion. Just want to dig deep on those tough moments. Let's start with, you said back-to-back shoulder injuries. How do you handle this uber frustration of physical sports? Contacts are going to happen. Sometimes the body says no thank you and breaks. Yeah. How do you handle that disappointment? That you feel that? How do you handle it?
Yeah, it was the first injury. I kind of felt my body was breaking down, and I needed a little rest, which was a blessing in disguise. Which gave me time to develop a little bit physically, and also watch the game in terms of what kind of player I needed to evolve in. But then the second injury back to back, that was psychologically that was the toughest one. To be able to be away from the game that long, your thoughts are like, oh, am I going to be the same player when I get back? What does it look like for me, my position in the team? Am I getting a little bit old? It's those kind of thoughts that creep in mind. But I think the first thing is you really need a good support base, your family, also a lot of friends around that help you get to where you need to be, not help you in terms of changing the course of where you need to go. So family were huge for me, a lot of close friends. But the club, the Blues, were incredible in terms of how they helped me get back to where I needed to be. But I even thought that after my second operation, that I was even better when I got back in terms of focusing on rehab and people talking to you that the rehab process is a good way to relaunch your career, relaunch your next phase. So it was, ended up being positive.
So I told you before we started what I do at Team Pact, and it's like trying to build a bridge between excellence, entrepreneurship on one side, and sporting excellence on the other side. And one thing that's really important is this concept of run and build. How much you run a company on a day-to-day basis? I need to sell, I need to operationally be active, but also how I need to build my product for the future. It's not going to pay off right now. I need to build my product, I need to build my team, I need to build a different geography. You need to grow or run the day-to-day. And often there's never enough time. If you only do build, you're not selling anything day one. You're doomed. If you only sell now, then all of a sudden once you run out of your product, your competition got better. Well, you've got no new product to launch again. It's a bit like having the academy not functioning, but the first team doing really well. And you need that balance between the two. But even for players or for leaders, it's really important to find the time to still grow individually. And what I find very frustrating with what you're saying is that most guys only say the only time I was allowed to grow was when I was injured, because otherwise when you play, you simply don't have the time to add it, and people can think of it as a little bit of a defocus. Focus on your game on this Saturday. What about developing myself as a player, as a leader?
It's awesome.
It's a tough one.
I think moving here to France, I've seen the difference in terms of the player. A lot of players focus on themselves in terms of not just rugby-wise, but developing as people, as businessmen, So yeah, it was the biggest shock coming here to France that the players put so much focus on the double project. The rugby's there, but the double project gives me the balance to grow as a rugby player and as a person. So I thought that was incredible.
No, it's the way to go forward. But also you mentioned something really important is very quickly on is filtering whose opinion matters. You talk about your inner circle. But the better you get, the more noise it makes. And in France, we say there's 66 millions de sélectionnaires. There's 66 million selectors, right? Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody knows. Nobody knows. Even sometimes the selector doesn't know. You know, a teacher, a coach, a manager, a leader, it's just their opinion. Nobody has the exact recipe and equation for team performance. Otherwise, everybody would do it, right? Sometimes you like a face, you don't like a face. You like a way of playing rugby, you don't like a way of playing rugby. But you're staying true to yourself by defining very, very quick whose opinion truly matters to you. Sort of safeguard you to, okay, there's noise, but as long as I don't hurt them, as long as they're not disappointed, then I'm on the right track. Right? What was your toughest moment with the black jersey on? What was like the darkest, toughest moment that you had to face, other than injury?
I would say 2009 was a tough year for me because all the Jerry Collins, a lot of the older guys had left the group, so it was thrust onto us the responsibility from 2008, 2009. 2009 we lost all 3 Tri-Nations games to South Africa at home. We lost to Australia. We obviously lost to France in June when you came over. And that was a real dark time in terms of is this new crop ready for international pressure? Are they ready for the All Blacks pressure? And there was a lot of games where I didn't really play that well in terms of performance, and there was a huge amount of media publicity about what the coach has done to have we picked the right guys. And I thought, I kind of doubted myself that, am I the right person for the job? Am I in the right place? What do I need to do to do? So
how did you deal with that doubt?
Exactly what you just said. You need to learn how to filter whose opinions matter the most. And it was funny enough that a lot of the guys within the team, the coaches, were the ones saying that we have the right guys in the right places. It's just a matter of us growing and solidifying the group to be able to get the performances out. So even though they say that, you still have a little bit of doubt in your mind, because especially when you have back-to-back bad performances, but being able to refocus into that and using that as fuel to improve, it does a lot. But yeah, I remember 2009 as being one of the darkest, toughest years in an All Black jersey. Yeah. And
what are as a leader, what are the tougher things that you had to do that maybe to express that doubt, to solidify the team, like you said, to go over and beyond that adversity? Do you have a particular memory of the toughest thing that you had to do as a leader?
Oh. I remember with the Blues, we had a lot of years where we underperformed. We had some incredible X-Factor players. We had some world-class players, but we just couldn't perform as a team. And I remember a lot of times I was quite vulnerable as a leader, as a captain, to be able to express to the boys how I felt, the frustration. You had to try and let it all out for the boys to see, in terms of try and get your message across. And that I found that pretty hard.
Let your guard down.
Yeah, let my guard down to try and be vulnerable to the team. Sometimes that works, but then sometimes different environments react differently to how you express it. But I found it was a positive for the team to be able to be vulnerable as a leader, as a senior player, and to let the rest of the guys follow suit. And I felt that it brought the team closer.
But did you think that anybody could ever think that you were weak?
Yeah, sometimes you think that.
You didn't look weak on the pitch, mate, I'll tell you.
Yeah, sometimes it creeps in. But you as an experienced player, you kind of realise that it's a strength. It's a positive thing. It's not a sign of weakness when you're being vulnerable. It's a sign of wanting more from your team, wanting more from what we are actually doing. Yeah.
Yes, it's a proper challenge.
Mm.
And your toughest moments are, you're a new coach, you're a young coach, but the toughest moments for a coach, what are they?
Oh,
do you ever have to go into team selection, or are you more part of a team that does the team selection?
Yeah, I'm part of the team that does the team selection. With the Espoirs, I'm really into it. With the pro team, you put in your advice in terms of what you think. But I think the toughest thing is selection, especially when all players are performing, and you've got a lot of guys that are world class. A lot of guys who aren't really internationals, but they're performing, turning up to trainings, great attitudes. That's the toughest bit, to be able to have those tough conversations with players that they won't be playing or they won't be selected. I think that's the toughest part for me.
So how do you have a tough conversation?
Oh, you just got to be honest. You got to be open and honest. Always connecting with the players in terms of where the team's heading, why you made a decision. You can't really sugarcoat things to make it sweet for them. Just got to tell them how it is. And if your culture's right, if you got full buy-in from the players, they will understand why and how you made the decision. Doesn't make it any easier, but I think. As a coach, it doesn't get any easier when you have to make those decisions or have those discussions. Yeah.
But you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
So you said about it when you give that feedback, and 1 week you don't want to have the fastest team and then the heaviest team, and you need to keep that consistency in terms of feedback.
Yeah, and consistency in terms of just keeping in touch with the players. So have a weekly catch up or weekly check up in terms of their performance, where they need to be, and I think in the long run that makes those tough decisions easier.
And you said you mentioned about having the right environment. Is that linked also to your thing that the leadership direction given by the ABs wasn't just one-dimensional? The players could also not criticize, but I mean constructive criticism, question why. Not so much to rebel against it, but just to challenge and to make it even sharper. But then you need to have coaches who are able to receive those questions and that constructive criticism, right?
Yeah.
So when you talk about having the right culture, is that right culture that feedback is a gift, and it has to be
a two-way street.
A two-way street, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. As a player, I was just to sit there, I'll take the information, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. I was that kind of player, but as a coach, I kind of like the feedback in terms of what they're actually thinking.
Yeah,
I'd prefer them to tell me if they agree with it or if they don't agree with it, and then we can work together to come up with a model or a direction that we all agree with or buy into.
A tough one is there's a lot of chat over work-life balance. In any type of excellence that you're trying to achieve, yes, of course, you're making family sacrifices. I'm sure you missed a ton of weddings and birthdays and christening that you couldn't go to, and we can never. I'm not sure you did many stag do's during 20 years of career, and you miss all that. I mean, look, I think it's better to win the World Cup than to go to a stag do, but you still miss out on stuff, right? And when you're a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, you were not having the same summers as a normal 21-year-old who's going to uni, which is not. It's a decision and a direction you decide to make. But talk to us about, usually entrepreneurs ask me, how do I switch off when I get home? How do I just leave a little bit of what I'm doing at the office and not bring it home, because otherwise it becomes unbearable. That stress and that frustration of 09 when you constantly think, when you're going home, you're probably already still thinking, tomorrow I need to do this with the boys, etc. How do you manage to switch off?
It was tough for me. It'll take me a while. After a test match, it'll take me a while to decompress, a couple of days to stop thinking about either a loss or the highs of a win. I think for me, having kids was the biggest, medication for that. It helped me switch off completely from rugby. It was a good distraction from all the pressures of high-level sport. But before that, I would always dwell on certain things that will happen in a game, certain things that will happen in training, or things that I need to do. But yeah, for me, since having kids, that was the biggest decompressor, refocus for me. Every time I got home, I knew that rugby's just a game. That there's more to
They
life
come
than
first.
more to life than just worrying about what happened or something that's not even life-threatening, you know?
And without talking about the financial incentives, is getting away from all that pressure of being such a small country and so dominating in rugby was that also one of the things that appealed to you going to Japan? It's just to do something else, new culture, new opportunity, yes, but also have a bit of tiny bit of a breathing space from that hurricane.
Yeah, because the media pressure in New Zealand, it's all rugby. Everything's rugby. And with the salary and everything, but just the breathing space to be able to play rugby just because you loved it, not with all the added pressure. And I loved Japan. And when I even considered coming to France, I adopted my same thinking before I went to Japan. Is that, geez, it was a culture that I never really experienced and never knew of, and I absolutely loved it. France could offer the same thing, and that's why we were quite intrigued in terms of the opportunity. And 7 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah, you must be enjoying it.
I'm loving it.
But also, you did something. I think you really bought into the culture, didn't you? You weren't like, staying home and not pretending like you were in your own little bubble. You really bought into this whole. Toulouse is a big club. Yeah. It's an important club. It's the club in France. And in Europe, it has a bit of a stamp. It's one thing. I was loving this thing last year. In France, in England, everybody says jouer, jouer. It's just throw the ball around, and they always link it to Toulouse. And there was this idea that Thibaut Flamand was saying this quote that when he played for Wasps, there was this coach Dai Young who saw a guy flip a silly pass at training. He said, "Hey, we're not in Toulouse here." Oh yeah. It's almost a brand. It's like to Google something. You guys have almost become a brand. So you have to buy into that. You have to understand where it is. Talk to us about coming to France, age 34, double World Cup winner, Japan, a ton of experience behind you, but still the mental freshness of learning, no? Yeah.
I was really excited to come to France. Obviously, I had so many friends who had passed through the club as players, Luke McAllister and Amir Tialata. We still had Joe and Charlie here. So it wasn't like I was going into the dark, into the unknown. I was... and obviously the top 14 in the Heineken Cup, as it was, is really well known in New Zealand, so you're quite aware of everything. But I was quite intrigued in terms of learning how the French flair comes about, how they play. And when I arrived in Toulouse, the first training session, it was cans, and guys are just creating something from nothing. And for me, I was just like... That's where it's bred, and it was incredible. Yeah. Team culture, the club have been incredible, and the players were welcoming, and for me it was just an easy transition to get into.
It was still a big difference.
Yeah.
What was like the one main difference? Like I got to England, nobody shook hands in the morning. That was a shock for me. I got there and I felt like they were looking at me weird. Like, why are you trying to shake my hand? And, in France, if you don't do it, it's like disrespectful. You need to go. Did I see you this morning? Yes. And you say hello. Otherwise it's like a disrespect. In England, they didn't care. Was there something like that you found funny?
The bisou was a big, that was a big shock. But also the long lunches. The guys like to sit and exchange, which I love. It's good, but the shaking hands in the morning was a good one, and also the amount of coffee, the café.
You gotta stay awake. Yeah. You gotta stay awake. And you said that it was easier to learn Japanese than to learn French.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, the pronunciation and the vowel structure is a lot easier. It's similar to my native language, Samoan. Yeah. So the pronunciation of words is easier, and the structure of the sentences is how you would pronounce it in English and in Samoan. So I found it to be able to read it, I could just read it right off the back and have the pronunciation right. Whereas French, sometimes it's back to front, sometimes it depends on masculine, feminine. But no, I'm getting a handle of it.
Nice. Well, before we're going to wrap this up and a couple of quick questions, but there's one thing that you can't say it, but I can. That was really impressive with you and with the All Blacks. Totally is in France. We need to consider that you need to prove that you're in the game. You need to show with a face that you're prepared for the game. 4 hours before, if you saw a French forward smiling, they would look at you. He's not ready. He's not ready. He's not really focused. And then you play the ABs. And in my era, where it was against you and Julien Savé, I said, mate, they had earphones on and they were dancing on the pitch half an hour before, doing their own warm-up.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, you guys were pretty physical. It wasn't an idea of not being ready. But then you actually had individual warm-ups a lot, right? We do everything together. You saw guys doing laps and some doing training and Julien Savé dancing. Yeah. And then 15 minutes or 20 minutes before, you sort of get together, do a couple of drills, hit a bag, in the sheds. And then once the haka's done, you guys are pretty ready.
Yeah.
How do you flick that switch? How do you stay calm and collected, but cross the white line and become a warrior? How do you do that?
I don't know. I think it's probably just a culture thing. But a lot of the teams that I've worked with in New Zealand, by the captain's run, if you haven't got all your detail to be confident to play a test match, then you're not ready. So whatever happens after that, if you've done all your preparation up to the Friday, whatever happens after that, you can be yourself. You just make sure that once the whistle goes, everything else is out the window and performance is optimum. That's it, front of mind. So I've always been, I think in New Zealand as well, we've always been of the belief that you don't really have to walk around like a robot or you're going to war or like a Viking to be ready for a game. You can be relaxed, but when it's time to switch on, you flick the switch.
Who leads the captain's run?
Captain, whoever the captain is. Coaches never really,
Yeah, that's funny because you know how it goes in France. It's the captain until a ball is dropped, until something, and then they're straight in.
Exactly.
And there's this really good, this good analogy of, imagine you're preparing a really important pitch for a startup. It's like a really intense moment. It's really hard not to prepare until the last second. But your message to say, look, once the prep is done, stay fresh, stay relaxed, stop talking about it. Even like the night before, just flip your laptop down. You're done with this.
Yeah.
Because whatever you do after, it's not going to help. If anything, it might add some fog into your thoughts.
Exactly.
And you think it's going to add, it's actually going to diminish your performance. And the ultimate lack of trust is to say, the captain leads it. We're out. We've done our job.
Yeah.
Nice. Couple of really quick questions. Is there an athlete, you mentioned Kevin and stuff, but non-rugby probably. Is there an athlete in any sport, in any country, that you look up to, that inspires you, that you could potentially, want to meet one in your life? If you could flick a switch and see anybody, meet anybody, is there an athlete that really inspires you and why?
Michael Jordan.
Boof.
Yeah.
Easy. I've got his number. Easy.
Yeah, Michael Jordan. Just I was in the 90s. I grew up in the 90s with that Bulls era. Just peak performance every time he was on the court. Yeah. And also lately just watching all the documentaries about him, how ruthless he was in terms of excellence. I think a lot of his teammates probably think he's a dickhead, but it's masked. It was just his way of getting excellence out of his teammates and excellence out of himself. But the product that he was able to put out every time he was on the court, the money time shot, he always wanted that shot and he would always nail it. I'm a Bulls fan and Michael Jordan fan, so he's the one I'd like to pick his brain on.
If we could, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
We'll come back to Toulouse.
Performance and also business side of things. How we took Jordan brand to the sky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there a book, a podcast, a film, a documentary, something that you found interesting, that you liked, that inspires you again? Again, it could be anything. Just a source of knowledge that you like. We mentioned Legacy by James Kerr, but something else. Yeah. Another book, a film, a documentary, a podcast, anything.
There was a book from a UFC fighter, Mark Hunt, Born to Fight. That really touched home because he's from the same background, same part of Auckland. It was really, really tough part of the New Zealand, South Auckland. But just how he was able to overcome that and become a K1 world champion, UFC champion, but also just navigating his way straight from the streets to the bright lights of Japan. I thought that was really inspirational, how he was able to turn his anger problems fighting at nightclubs to using it as a strength and something for his future into fighting. It was incredible. I thought it was cool.
And obviously, so final question, your origins from South Auckland, is that important to you? Obviously, you're Samoan origin too, but how important, how much did it build you as your person?
Yeah. No, it's the man I am now is from my experiences in South Auckland. It's given me an appreciation of whatever I receive or whatever comes my way in life. It's to be grateful for, because I had a great upbringing. It wasn't tough or wasn't anything, but a lot of opportunities for the kids in South Auckland don't come every day. So every opportunity, everything positive that happens in my life, I'm quite grateful for. And it's solely because a lot of things that we weren't given growing up in South Auckland. But I'm grateful to be from that part of the world, and really proud to be a South Auckland boy.
Well, the South Auckland boy did a pretty decent rugby career, has done really well transitioning to coaching, and I'm sure you're going to smash it. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your honesty. Look forward to see how much you can keep on smashing it on the rugby field, except not against Clermont, because you just wiped the floor with them on Sunday. That was pretty heartbreaking. But thanks again for being here, Us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Let's do it again.
My pleasure. Thanks, brother.